Welcome back, Wise Chat. It's September 4th. Happy Wednesday. I know we all missed you on Monday. Hope your case of the Mondays didn't get too out of hand. We had to observe Labor Day, which I hope everybody got to observe Labor Day. If you didn't get the time off, solidarity. We'll get your bosses back somehow. Hopefully, you're watching on the clock today in retaliation, and hopefully that doesn't qualify as legal grounds for anything. This is completely farcical and a joke. But Michael will be back with us in just a moment. Get cozy, lick the stem. Producer Henry says, "Welcome to Wednesday."
Hello, everyone. First of all, if you're watching this and you're just tuning in right now, this is a stream. This is not a fully produced video. This isn't scripted. We didn't do hours of research. So if you're about to leave a comment that says the quality of this channel has really dipped, it used to be well, researched, careful video essays, and now it's just some guy and there's another guy and they're talking and there's people. It's stream. That's what we're doing. And the stream is called Wisecrack Live. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. I'm broadcasting, as you could see, from a different location. Is it a basement in the Midwest? Maybe. Am I down here because the family I'm staying with have their internet router in the basement so that the only place you can get really good service is if you're in a basement? Absolutely. Have I seen organic life forms besides myself in this space thus far? Yes, I have. And I'm excited to be here and do this for you all. Maybe we can do a basement tour later. There's an old chaise lounge, however you say it. I was thinking I could do this laying down thing, but it involved moving furniture, and I thought I'd get in trouble. But we're excited to be here. We were not streaming on Monday, as Henry already pointed out, because it was Labor Day, so we do hope you got Labor Day off. And I want to note the threat that was made against bosses. That's very much all on Henry. I would never say that. I would never ever say any of the stuff that he just said right there. But hopefully everyone's doing okay, and I do agree that it'd be nice if you guys were stealing time from bosses. Now today, our main topic is going to be video essays. And there was, I always get people's names wrong. I think oliSUN made a video on what you can actually learn from video essays, and I have always enjoyed her work when I've watched her videos, and she has a background in philosophy as well, so game recognized game. Also, a lot of good Toronto-based YouTubers, She's there. CJ the X is a Toronto person. I think Broey Deschanel is or was a Toronto person, so shout out to Toronto. I don't want to go back there because I don't want to go to the re-education camp, but a lot of good YouTubers from that space. And we definitely want to hit up our mailbag today because we're behind on that. What's up, Mellow Jello? Great to see you. As always, like the stream if you haven't already. It helps us out a lot. And if you haven't checked it out yet, check out Friday's video on... It's on a lot of stuff, guys. It's on James Lindsay. It's on Jordan Peterson. It's on Kamala Harris. It's on Satan. Shouts to 666. And it's another in our series of videos that I honestly, and I'm not just saying this to suck up to you guys, it was basically co-written with you all because it really comes out of some stream stuff. We kind of... It's one of those reaction videos where some of the stuff where I talk about in the video, I watched with you all on the stream, and that's kind of what got the ball rolling. So thank you for that. I'm not going to be sharing any of the money made from it with any of you. So thank you for letting me exploit your labor. That's what I'm into. Sandhill Farmer's working on a video essay about what one can learn from video essays, about what one can learn from video essays, about one. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Let's see. Persephone almost missed this because they were rewatching CJ the X videos. I need to get CJ on here. I had so much fun the time. I don't know if any of you are on CJ's Patreon, but I did like a hour, 2 hour conversation with them once that I think was on their Patreon, and it was so much fun. Um, if anyone did stuff for Labor Day, let us know in the chat. Henry, did you do anything Labor Day specific?
I had the time off. I didn't do anything, kinda. I continued rewatching the Alien movie. I've been watching them in reverse.
Whoa, you reverse cowgirls the Alien movie series. That's very, very fun. Um, God, I'm so behind on movies. Yeah, let us know if anyone did anything for Labor Day. It's a weird holiday, because in one sense, we might say that May Day is more of like the official workers' holiday. Labor Day is a weird one because America has a really complicated relationship with labor as such. But having a day off work feels good. I don't know if anyone else has this experience, so let us know in the chat or the comments if you do. And this happens to us at Wisecrack, where there's a holiday and it's like, oh, great, we got a day off work. But then we still have the exact same production output. So then all it means normally on a holiday week is we still have to do all the same stuff just in 4 days, which brings up two questions. Thank you for letting me go on this digression ahead of time. One question is, what's the point of having a day off work if you're still expected to get the same amount of work done just in less time? The second, maybe more interesting question is, on those holiday weeks, if we are able to functionally get everything done in 4 days, should we just have a 4-day work week? Like really think about that for most of us. If you had to do your job in 4 days, like could you? Even if that meant, let's say, if we're thinking about it in terms of the 40-hour work week, thank you for answering my Labor Day question in the poll. Maybe that means in 4 days you don't work 32 hours, you work 34 hours or something like that. I just think it's a better model. I think if you are in a position, if any of you out here are bosses or you run your own company or you run a team, maybe try it out. Something we've talked about before, but I think it's something that is worth doing. Someone said 2 days on, 5 days off. I would also like that. I would also very much like that as an option. Let's read some comments from recent videos. And again, thank you for watching stuff. Thank you for watching streams. And thank you for everyone who commented on last week's video, the one on Peterson and Lindsay and Marks and Harris and all that sort of stuff. Looking at that one, I wish I would have maybe gone a little more in depth on some things, but I know part of it is just the reaction format. It is a bit more emotive. I think it's very pathetic in the Greek sense of the word, like pathos based, to do those reaction things. But thanks for all the comments on that one. There were some very fun ones, and there wasn't as many unhinged ones as I thought. But there's one I want to start with. Can we start with the Christopher Hemsworth creative comment? I don't think this is the Chris Hemsworth, but someone left a long comment, and I want to give this person credit because I did respond to this comment, and they wrote back being like, hey, my bad, thanks for getting back to me. And I will always say I am very Christ-like in that I just give out forgiveness like it's candy. So if someone leaves a comment that I think is a little unfair and I respond and they're like, oh, my bad, it's like, all is forgiven. You are healed. Come with me to the kingdom that will be forever. But Christopher Hemsworth Creative said, it's so sad and frustrating to me every single time you say anything followed by the persistent phrase, and yes, I'm doing a performative reading here. Let me know in the comments. Because it's clearly just bait to get engagement on the video. You don't care about anything that any of us have to say. I wager that nobody cares about anything anybody has to say anymore, really. I started years back as a huge fan, and every single time I hear that turn of phrase peppered throughout your videos, it's like another candle being blown out in the illumination of hall of admiration for what you're doing. The ultimate irony is that I finally gave in and commented about calls out to comment. Okay, so that's Chris's comment. Now, in a sense, is it fair to say that elements of YouTube and social media culture in general that ask for comments and stuff like that are just ploys to drive engagement? It's like, well, sure, right? Like when I tell you to like the stream, we want the validation that you like the stream, but when you click like and enough of you click that, it tells YouTube, hey, people don't hate this. Maybe we'll show it to more people, which is often why the more you all like the stream, please like the stream. We need you to like the stream, but the more you like the stream, the more friends show up and hang out with us. And we know that up until a point, more friends is fun. We also know at a certain point, it means we get weird trolls in here. So we want to go right up to right under the peak of Troll Mountain. But the thing that's very funny and ironic to me is that if you look at our videos, you know that I think, I'm going to make a very bold claim here. I think I read and respond to more comments than any other YouTuber of a comparable size. In terms of channels that regularly get, in the hundreds of thousands of views, I read a lot of comments and I respond to them. Like if you ever leave a comment on a Wisecrack video, even if the comment back is just like, hey, appreciate it. That is not AI. It's not an intern. It's not one of my colleagues. It is, I am the one who does that.
Yeah, I've worked for a few other YouTube channels of comparable sizes, and honestly, the general rule of thumb is don't pay attention to the comments. The comments will drive you insane. Ignore it. So I'm always surprised when I'm clipping comments for the streams because I see your little likes and replies all over the Wisecrack comments.
I'm a sicko, guys. I'm a real sicko. But I do, and I find it fun for two reasons. I like the fact that I get to. The best part is some of you who are regulars in this community, this stream community, because again, this is a stream, will pop up there, and sometimes we'll drop stream-related inside jokes, which I love. Sometimes people say really insane stuff, and I do tend to respond to people that are like, Michael should die. We should make Jared kill him with a gun. I do think it's funny to respond to those. But in this case, I was like, man, this guy's saying all this stuff. And on the video he said this to, you could scroll through and see me actively engaging with comments. Second of all, we have an entire segment on our stream where we read comments, and sometimes we do it because they're silly, but we do it because we actually read these and value you. So I appreciate Chris for getting back and responding to my comment, but I just thought that one was really funny, so we had to point it out. Is going in order then, is the next one for you the Geek Club? Great. The Geek Club left a comment, shouts to the Geek Club, that said, I can't stress enough how much cooler they make Hera sound than she actually is. This is really funny, and this is why the ultra-right people are hilarious. We looked at a video where James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson a bit are like, Kamala Harris is a red diaper baby, a communist, Marxist, egalitarian, Satanist. And for a lot of us, it's like, that'd be better. We'd prefer. She was a Marxist Satanist or whatever. But we show some in the very video. We showed clips, and also shout to Jackson, who I'm not looking at the chat right now, was here earlier. Jackson edited the absolute shit out of that video. Nothing makes me happier than hearing in a meeting, oh, Jackson's going to edit that one. And this is, of course, Jackson from Skip Intro, one of the better, and we'll get to this, video essayist in his own right, but also just an incredible editor of all things YouTube. So if you need a YouTube video edited, give Jackson $100,000 and he'll do it for you. But yeah, it's in the very video. Jackson pulled some clips. We had some other examples of Harris, who just says and we looked at this on stream last week, guys. Military, good. Israeli military, real good. Capitalism, yay! This is who that person is. Dallin Powell said, if you want to learn about Christianity, you ask a Christian. If you want to learn about history, you ask a historian. If you want to learn about Marxism, you should ask a capitalist, apparently. Arguments in bad faith are tiresome. Yeah. Again, it's real dead horse time out here, but it's hard to stop talking about Marxism when not just James Lindsay, not just Jordan Peterson, but a lot of mainstream politicians in America keep talking about it and keep accusing everyone they don't like of Marxism, because it just leads to horrific misunderstandings of an economic and political theory and a philosophical theory. And the reason I keep talking about it isn't because I'm a orthodox Marxist. I am not. I think Marx's ideas are really important. I think there's a reason that people still talk about them. I think that we can only expect so much from someone that wrote almost 200 years ago in terms of using their words or work to understand our contemporary situation. But oh boy. Now another thing, and this comment's from Jay Eric. I asked for advice on being a grifter because I think that I would like to be one. Because I know that James Lindsay makes more money than me, probably a lot more money than me. And I know the stuff he talks about way better than him. So I am interested in that line of work. But Jay Eric says, I think the key to being a grifter is not to understand marks, but to understand what people fear about marks. Good luck on your new grifting journey. I believe in you. Thank you so much. But it's true. I do think, and I think that's an acute analysis or like diagnosis of a lot of the reactionary grifter stuff. It's like you identify what people fear about a thing, and then you highlight and exacerbate and exaggerate that fear. So like, let's take American politicians, for example. And this is apropos because our video on Friday is about immigration and borders. And we see politicians doing this right now, not just in American elections, but all over the world, where it's like, okay, what are people afraid of? Immigrants and migrants. Okay, then what should we do? Let's talk about those specific fears, even if they're not grounded in reality, and heighten them so that everyone thinks a migrant is going to like murder them and sexually assault them and take their job and take all their health care. Like today, Donald Trump on his official Twitter account used an AI image of immigrants rushing a hospital because now their new fear, the fear they're trying to monger, is that migrants are going to overwhelm the U.S. healthcare system. So if you want to grift, that's how you do it. Oh, hell yeah. I'm going to get through this last comment. I'm going to hit the super chat. Never Ending Party said, dude, just taking a sociology class has given me enough information to understand why they're butchering social justice. Yes, sociology rips. It's maybe the best subject. And if you know anything, you know these guys are full of S. Oh, it's from Young Jack. I don't know if you're Young Jack. I just like to call you Young Jack. My mom and I are tuned into the live stream right now. What's up, Jack's mom? I hope you're doing well. In our interactions with your son, it seems like you've raised a mellow and curious guy. And I think that the fact that you have a child that, wants to put in the time and effort to let others know that his mom is awesome is really sweet and cute. And I only pray, Jack's mom, I don't know if it's Miss Esposito. I don't want to be presumptuous here, but I hope that one day I have a kid as well. So we're both parents. If my kid one day, goes on a stream and is like, yo, shout out my dad. He's cool. That would make me really happy. So shout out to Jack's mom. And there we go. Dr. Clownicus wishes their mom was cool enough to watch. What's up, Alok Revi? And I think we'll look at some of your emails later. Really appreciate getting those. Great. Like the stream if you have not already. It helps us when you do. So those were our comments. Okay. I do not have an example today to show you of our current sponsor, but just a reminder, I should have brought some with me. And I'll tell a story that will lead into not our sponsor, our partner. So we talk about coffee sometimes. So, I've been staying with relatives. And as you know, sometimes I'm going to lean in so I can whisper a little bit. You stay with relatives and they have really sometimes weird food in their house, or you got to check to see if things are expired. And I found when I travel, the hardest thing sometimes is coffee. Because a lot of people, they don't care. They don't make coffee the way I make coffee. And I'm not trying to be a snob here. But I miss it. I miss the coffee. So what I wish I would have done is brought a bag of Yes Please coffee on this trip. I had 2 unopened bags of Yes Please at my house just waiting for me. Could have put one in my carry-on. Could have had great coffee. I did get some good coffee out here. Shouts to Granner Farms in southwestern Michigan. Not to dox myself, but I got some great coffee there the other day. But coffee is important. And if you like good coffee, we have a coffee partner. They're called Yes Please. It's a coffee brand based out of Los Angeles. They're becoming friends, and I'm going to follow up with them. We have this giveaway thing that's supposed to start soon, partly delayed because I took forever to email them back because I'm a terrible person. But they're just awesome. They make incredibly good coffee. You get 20% off if you use code Wisecrack. So I would just say if you're a coffee drinker anyways, please do check it out. And I'm not going to bullshit you guys. it's like high end coffee, so it's more expensive than a bag of beans you'll get at the grocery store. With the 20% off, it's only a little bit more expensive, and it's really good. I know there's people who have, shouted out in the chat and talked about their experiences with it. So if you feel like doing that, do it. But if not, no worries. I'm out here trying to grift off you guys. Oh yeah, Tori, I really wanted to watch that video. We just aren't gonna watch it on stream probably because it's so long. But check that out. Yeah, so Sean's in the chat. Sean says he's got it. And his cold brew is ripping. It does make really good cold brew. Tasha Geeks, what's up? Good to see you. Got some as well. So, do that if you want to. Yes, spices have a shelf life as well as parents always have the old ass spices. Okay, so let's see. Michiana, Andrew, it totally does. I legit want to move here. I think I was going to say one more thing before we really get cooking. Oh, yeah. And guys, this is going to be the first time Henry hears about this as well. Guys, this is the first time anyone's heard about this besides me and like one other person. Yeah, get ready for this, Henry. I got approval to put on a 12-hour Wisecrack holiday stream in December. Don't worry, Henry, I'm not going to ask you to work all 12 hours, but we'll ask you to be on as much as you can, and we'll obviously pay you overtime for that. So what I want from you guys, if anyone has ideas for things you'd like to see on an all-day stream, email us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. The other thing I'm going to try to do is get sponsors for every hour for like cool things we like. So for example, I'm obviously going to see if Yes Please wants to be one of the sponsors for that, and they'd sponsor an hour of it, and we would get like a discount code because we want to have it early enough to where you could still use those codes for last minute Christmas gifts. But if anyone could think of like cool products that they think I could reasonably get in touch with the person and get us some discounts for the stream. If there's guests you want me to try to get on, whether it's people who are in our extended universe and I can get, or like big swings, let us know as well. I really want to try to make it a fun and weird day. Probably do it like, the week before Christmas or something like that. And speaking of guests, I do want to shout out one time, or maybe two time, or at least one time Wisecrack guest, Skylar Higley, who got put on Vulture's Comedians to Watch in 2024 list, which is a very big deal. So there you go. That's the big advice. That's the big thing I wanted to tell you that, again, Henry didn't even know because I'm out here just dropping bombs left and right, dropping exclusive things. And I think I got approval, I think, to fly Lux out to LA to maybe help with it. And he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to ask Lux to design some weird, like, prank challenge punishment things for me to do, because we might do it. Because another thing we're going to do. So one more thing I'll tell you guys. If you have recommendations on this, we do want to make it a charity fundraiser. So if there's an organization or a charity you think that would be really good, hit us up at Wisecrack Live 666. If you work for a nonprofit or you know someone that does, let us know. There's a couple of organizations I know of that are in particular raising funds for children in Gaza. I think that something like that would be a great thing to do, but very interested. And obviously we know that a lot of sometimes nonprofits and orgs can be a little bit shady. So we want to find a good one. So there you go. Allie, we'll call on you to help. So don't play with us. Don't play with us because we'll do it. Mark Nugent is catching up. So we'll see you in a second, Mark. But yeah, again, Wisecrack Live 666. Hit us up. We'll look at emails later. So if you're just tuning in, again, this is Wisecrack Live. It's September 4th. I'm broadcasting from a remote location in southwestern Michigan. It's a basement. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry, and today's main topic is video essays. Now, some of this is inspired by oliSUN's recent video on this. There's a video that someone else brought up from, is it Zoe B, I think, on YouTube, and the death of media literacy, which maybe we'll look at a little bit of. And, I think that I'm obviously interested in video essays because I make them for a living. I'm interested in them as well because I've been on this kick recently where, and this is going to be like overshare honesty time. So if you like when I overshare, please like the stream. If you don't like when I overshare, mute for a second. but currently going through a phase where I want, let me end that poll, where I want Wisecrack to be better. I don't think we're bad. I think we do good work, and I'm proud of almost every video we make. And I say almost not to be silly. There's some videos we make that I look back on, I'm like, I don't think that was good, or I don't think it was as good as it could have been. And in trying to like be better, I've been watching a lot more video essays recently. I've been taking notes on stuff. Just been trying to figure out, and including, I'm not even bullshitting you here, guys. I've watched some Jackson videos over at Skip Intro. I've watched all his videos anyways, but watched them with an eye to be like, why are they so good? Besides the fact that the host is such a handsome little piece of A. But I just harassed Jackson, and I'm sorry. And I guess we technically do work together, so he's probably going to sue me into the ground. So this will be our last stream ever.
Clip it now.
And Dr. Klonikus says, Dr. Klonikus says, didn't YouTube do a video at essay discourse like a year ago? Yeah, it did. And I think it's, I think one reason for the video essay discourse is with any form of media, it's like a thing starts, it gets pretty good, and then there's these paths where the people that do the thing early on will keep doing it how they normally do it, and then a younger generation comes in and they do it a little differently. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worth, they do it differently. Another generation comes, and now the video essay has been around long. Like, yes, bald powers unite. Super bald.
Last year when it was going around too, it was shortly after the James Somerton H bomber guy plagiarism bomb.
Yeah, that was fun. Or maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But what was I about to say? Sorry. I sometimes when I'm on vacation, I've been on vacation, I take a break from the old ADHD meds, which is fine. But I loosened my headphones and now I can hear myself. This feels more natural. I think when I look at the history of Wisecrack, right? Wisecrack's old enough where people who watched Wisecrack when they were legit children are now like college students or older who are making content, who are making videos and stuff like that. Sometimes I feel old enough when like there's people who I've worked with before in a professional context who are like, oh man, I loved Wisecrack when I was in high school. And I'm like, ah, shit. And yeah, and Jackson makes a point I want to get to in a second. Like, I think that on our end, and I'm just speaking for myself, not my colleagues, but I think a lot of the things at Wisecrack that I really want us to change or work against is like, it's hard to not keep doing things the way that you're doing, right? If any of you have ever been in a relationship, I mean, I know a bunch of you have been in relationships. We're not all incels here. But for those of you who have been in a relationship, sometimes you might want to change or become a better person or like, up how you are treating your partner, all this sort of stuff. And that it's the hardest thing in the world to break patterns and break habits, to do stuff differently, to make yourself a better person. And I feel like it's the same way when it's trying to make your creative output better or do something differently. Jackson makes this point. Jackson said, don't forget about the content mills just pumping out vapid video essays that say absolutely nothing. This is the other thing that happens, right? Remember how, for my coffee heads out there, shouts to yes, please. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if you walked by a coffee shop and its name was like Fluid, Roast, Cup, and it was all like one kind of Scandinavian looking font, and you walked in and it was all sort of like natural wood furniture, and there was baristas and they all wore black shirts, and the guy had like a mustache and a rolled up beanie, you were probably like, okay, I might get roasted by this barista for not being cool enough, but like we're cooking. These people are going to make me some dope coffee. Same thing happened when there was the early like mixology thing, which I think happened when I was like wrapping up college. You go to these bars and the guys have little suspenders and you'd make a good old fashioned. In the early iterations of these things, the aesthetic of the thing itself was an indicator of quality. 9 times out of 10 in 2007 to 2012, let's say, if you walked by the coffee shop that looked like the cool third wave place, it probably was good. If you walked by the cocktail bar that was called like the Secretist and had like a little door you had to walk through, whatever, it was probably pretty good. What happens then is in the second generation, people take the aesthetic of the thing without the content. So you started having these really shitty coffee shops that looked cool, but just served the same shit you get in like a grocery store coffee shop. You had cocktail bars that had all the aesthetics and were just giving you like syrupy, sugary drinks with dumb names. And now we're like 2 generations removed from that. I think you see a similar thing in the video essay space where people have established, okay, what are the aesthetics of people who are good at this? And how can I use that aesthetic and then just say nothing? And I think that's a point that Jackson makes that's absolutely right. And I think there's a difference between people that do more casual commentary that maybe is not vapid but a little more simple. And I think there's totally space for that. I like making videos like that. But it's important to know that. So we'll get into this video. I think, what's up, Drift King? Good to see you. I think, and like the stream, if you're just popping in, guys, let's see. I'll click play and then we'll kind of hit pause. Okay, so we're gonna watch this video. Oh my God, did it already go to the end? Oh no, now we're here. Okay.
Hi.
Okay, so I clicked pause. So let's start this video, which I like how at the bottom she puts, this video will have no citations and poor structure, just pure yappery. I've watched half of this one thus far. So half of it I'll actually be, organically responding to with you all. Half of it I'll just be a liar. No, I'm kidding. But I'm sure some of you have seen this as right. Thomas Fight is really good. He is a really, really, really good video maker. Let's see. And Xanderall, I totally get what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. So let's watch this and just talk about video essays. And I assume a lot of us are here because we make them, we watch them. And I guess before I get into it as well, I'll talk about this more later. I will say that I really like the video essay as a form in so much as intellectual ideas have always been transmitted via the communicative mediums of their times, whether that's verbal transmission, written transmission, published transmission, lectures, and I think there's no reason why we shouldn't be using whatever creative and communicative mediums we have at hand to explore and analyze big ideas. I think it's a very good thing to be doing. I also think that educational access is super important, and it sucks in America. I know it sucks in other countries too, but the fact that if you have an internet connection, there's people that are able to watch video essays made by really thoughtful people that are carefully exploring ideas. I think that's important. And I think as well, for a lot of people that live in like homogenous ideological bubbles, video essays are often a way to be introduced to ideas in a real personal sense that might make you feel less alone, that might help you see the world differently. And I think that is really important. I think it's a great medium. I want to keep making them. So that's, to be clear, we're talking about this today, not to shit on them, but to say it's an important medium, and it's interesting that people are asking questions about what they're doing. So let's, Henry, if you have any prefatory thoughts, share them, and if not, we'll start watching the video.
Let's get to the video.
Let's get to it, guys. Here we go.
Hello, I'm oliSUNvia, Olivia, fruity-haired philosophy girl, Walmart version of Mina Lay, the most annoying and boring
Walmart
YouTube
version
video
of Mina Lay is
essayist.
really funny.
What else have people called me? That one YouTuber they beg the algorithm to stop recommending them. Yep, that's me.
See, looking at comments is cool.
So I've been creating video essays for almost 3.5 years. I say that in scare quotes because I frankly don't care what category people think my videos fall under. My own playlist says commentary because 3 years ago, that's the label I heard people use, and I just never really bothered updating it. But hypothetically, let's suppose for the sake of argumentation that I am a video essayist. I was featured in the Uncle of Video Essays video on video essayists. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. So that's gotta count.
Yeah, the FD Signifier video on video essays is really good, by the way. I almost got bold enough. I'm gonna try to reach out to FD Signifier to see if he'll talk to us.
Something. Outside of YouTube, though, I am a bit of an aspiring academic. Yes, these people on your screens are real temporal beings that exist outside of the digital space. Shocker, I know. I graduated with my bachelor's this past June doing a philosophy specialist.
University of Toronto, by the way, great school. If you get a philosophy degree from University of Toronto, you're great. If you get a philosophy degree from University of Austin, maybe not so much. Maybe we'll talk about that later.
I got into law school last year, but deferred it for 1 year to do my master's in philosophy next month. I'm doing PhD applications in a few months. I am an
He's really
academic
after it.
tryhard. Is part of it coming from the pressure to fit into the Asian immigrant model minority category? Probably, but I also genuinely love philosophy and learning in general. I like being in school. I had a stab at teaching this past year as a teaching
Hell yeah.
assistant for an Intro to Philosophy course, and I'm going to be a teaching assistant for 2 more courses this upcoming year.
And I'll just say, I'll try not to stop too much, guys, but that's great. And that really makes me even more so like and trust her as a video essayist, because she's saying that like a part of her work is pedagogy. And I think that more video essayists, and I know many do, it's important to realize like what you're doing is a form of pedagogy. You're teaching people stuff. And if you're teaching people stuff, it doesn't mean you just like say shit that you're excited about or use big words. You got to be able to explain and use those concepts in ways that make people feel like they've learned something. And I know for me, at least with a Wisecrack video, if you walk away from watching one of our videos and you're like, that was fun, and I learned to think about something in a new way. I now see this phenomenon with a different perspective. I understand this political concept differently. Or if it's even just like, I never really got what like nihilism meant or epistemology or whatever. And at the end of this video, I now like get that thing. To me, that's a sign that it went well, in the same way that when I used to be a teacher, you know, that's kind of the standard I held for myself. So shouts to all educators everywhere in the world, except for the weird ones.
This is not to flex my achievements. I have
Flex
major
them.
imposter syndrome, and I frankly hate talking about these things, but I give this background because these academic progressions in my real life are exactly what's causing me problems as a video essayist. If we drew a graph with academic progression on
Love
one
graphs.
axis and video essay quality on the other, it is a negative relationship for me. The more I've learned, the more I've struggled with making good video essays.
And I'll say that sucks too. The worst feeling is when you make something that feels like, well, it's like well researched and really deep, and no one watches it. And it's sometimes you make something I think is a little bit mid, and then people watch it. It's like, what are we doing?
I know it sounds weird, and I may be the only one who feels this way, in which case
You're
I'm
not.
sorry for being incompetent, but it's like, remember my video, Drowning in Entertainment, where I talked about how different forms prime things to be better suited for certain functions, and how the form of visual audio media best lends itself to entertainment rather than education. I need a fork. Hold on. I can use a fork as a knife if I tried hard enough, but its form makes it much more possible to use it for picking stuff up, not cutting things, even though I could if I wanted to. Blech. But when I think about what I want to achieve with my video essays, unfortunately, entertainment is not the goal. Absolutely nothing wrong with being entertaining. I admire video essayists who balance education and entertainment well, and that is the hallmark.
Shout out to John the Duncan, by the way. John wrote our video that's coming out on Friday, and I meant to do this. I'm gonna follow up with him. I want to see if he'll come on stream next week and talk about it.
Mark of a good video essayist to me. Someone who is able to incentivize you to learn for 40 minutes instead of watching MILF Manor.
Which rips.
Yes, I watched MILF Manor. Please don't unsubscribe. In fact, I believe my greatest flaw as a video essayist is that I'm not naturally funny. I do not think I'm witty. I unfortunately thrive in dry academia. And continuing with traditional academia.
I think it's way better when video essayists who aren't funny don't try to be funny. There's nothing worse than someone who isn't funny who tries to be funny. And shout out to me for teeing someone up to leave a really mean comment on this one.
Yeah, has made it harder for me to be a good video essayist. I was chatting with CJ the X one day, and we were both bonding over the fact that we had both gotten worse at YouTube because we started reading more. See, my very first video essay, I wrote the script in an hour and a half and did no research. For the next 2 years-ish, I'd read like less than 10 sources per video essay and be content with that. Now that I've discovered how deep the existing literature can be on any given topic, I'm on that Google Scholar and Phil Papers grind.
That's a weird thing too, in thinking about like how deep someone should go, or like what the research expectations are for things like that. Because then there's that weird line of like, I think it's great sometimes when people make videos or explore ideas in a way that doesn't have academic depth, as long as they're like, I said depth, academic depth, as long as they're approaching it with an earnest and curious spirit. But maybe sometimes, I don't know if people feel like this, that then it's like it gets overwhelming if people are citing too many things. But, shouts to James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson, who don't read books and yet, are just making
I'm
bank.
reading book chapters, sifting through podcasts, reviewing my lecture notes. It always feels like there's more that I could know.
Okay, so
and
Jackson's
I feel like
getting
my
more
video
success the
essays
more
are never
research he does,
sufficient anymore.
which is rad.
This is not anyone's fault but my own. I'm bad at managing scope when it comes to projects, but the form of a video essay I feel like limits me and challenges me in that scope area even more. Philosophy certainly doesn't help.
I want to note that I think Jackson is funny and Skip Intro is a funny
When
channel.
it has trained me to try to think about all the possible perspectives out there. When CJ told me viewers liked it better when they just yapped, no one wants to hear them read quotes or cite papers, I was like, yes, I feel that, but I also like reading quotes. If you couldn't tell by now, this video is not going to be like most of my other videos.
I do wonder what you all
There
think
is going
about
to
that,
be
too.
analysis, but also just
do we
me
like quotes in
venting about
videos?
my problems to the internet.
Are
If
they
you want
boring?
a well-structured video essay with great visuals and voices from various creators, go watch Shanspeare's video on video essays. They did a great job. I do have some additional things to talk about though, so allow me to ramble.
Let's go.
Okay. Who the fuck am I talking to? Traditional academia is inaccessible to many people for various reasons. Video essays have played a substantial role in democratizing that academic learning to a wide audience in a more accessible format. That's obviously a pro video essay.
That's a fun graphic right there. Interesting fact too, with academic stuff, you'll find this if you ever Google or like come across a philosophy paper, an academic article, and you want to read it, you'll truly see that like you have to pay a lot of money to an academic journal to read it. Like it's not an exaggeration to say that sometimes it'll be like she has here, like $39. The wildest thing is, as an academic, when you write a journal article, which I've done before, and it's hard because you write 5,000 words or so, you then submit it, you maybe hear back 4 months later. After you're back 4 months later, a couple of anonymous people will leave comments on it, and then if it's good enough, you'll be invited to respond to those comments, resubmit the article. Maybe 3 or 4 months later, you hear back to say that it's been accepted. At this point, you might have written this thing a goddamn year ago. Comes out into a journal, you're excited about it, they send you 1 or 2 copies for free, and then anyone who doesn't have library access basically can't read it. And then you might be thinking, oh, well, the people that do read it, if they're paying $40, you surely get a cut of that. You make zero monies. You make zero monies for writing academic work. So it's both inaccessible for people who are curious, and it's unprofitable for the people who make it. You might be asking, why the hell does this system exist? This seems really dumb. Who goes for this shit?
Point.
I don't know.
But I find this also brings a new set of challenges to being an educator. I'm operating in a digital classroom, one in which I have no clue who I'm speaking to.
Jackson would
it's
never
very
use Sci-Hub.
one-sided. I can't see you, but you can
It's
see
bad.
me. Of course, I have a general sense of who watches my videos by looking
Never go
at
to
the
Sci-Hub.
YouTube studio demographics, but even then, there's so much variation within a single demographic. Also, while some video essayists have specific niches or a certain set of topics they talk about, I feel like my videos can vary a lot, from discussing meta-ethical theories, to the nature of love, to the relationship between law and morality. That makes the viewership of my channel vary a lot. My gender demographic split is almost always 50-50, which I've heard from other creators is pretty rare. So it's very hard for me to—
Our gender demographic is like the one she showed on the right. I was looking at, we've been doing well recently about having, I would say in the past 3 years, our gender demographic has gotten less male centric. But then I looked at the demo for the Lindsay and Peterson video the other day, and it's like just all dudes.
We're
Oops.
getting a few people in the comments, and I'm actually wondering myself, what's up with Sci-Hub? I'm in the dark.
So here's why you shouldn't use Sci-Hub, okay, guys? And this is like really serious. So what I'm saying right now, it's like super serious. I mean, here, I'm gonna read you the Wikipedia description of what it is, so you know that it is like really bad. Sci-Hub is a shadow library website. I might cry reading this, that provides free access to millions of research papers, regardless of copyright by bypassing publishers' paywalls.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
my God. This is,
Wow, they
I
do
can't even
that?
speak about this. I can't even speak about this. And, like, the scariest thing about that to me in particular is like, you know, like obviously if you illegally download an academic paper, which is horrible, and if you do that, you should go to hell. Um, obviously you're not stealing money from the academic because the academic never got paid in the first place, and the academic would probably want you to just have that information. But think about the poor exploitative publishing companies. I can't even talk about this anymore. This feels really messed up. I'm gonna go back to the video because I want to do a war against Sci-Hub. I just got militarized, radicalized, whatever you want to call
To
it.
guess what the viewers of my video will believe in
great,
and
though.
where
It's
their
great. You
educational
should use
starting point is. If I'm making a video on how makeup relates to oppression, should I assume the viewer already knows what patriarchy is and agrees it exists? Or should I try to justify its existence to potentially more conservative viewers? I don't think this educational challenge exists to the same extent in traditional classrooms. I mean, for one, the teacher and the student can interact with each other in real time. But on top of that, in traditional classrooms, you're a teacher assigned for a 3rd grade, 6th grade, or 11th grade classroom.
Scouts
You could be
teachers.
teaching in a public school, in a low-income neighborhood, or in a cushy private school. These situational features and categories allow teachers to know roughly where students' levels of capabilities are and what they'll be receptive to. And that greatly affects how you teach.
That's true too, because like when you make a video essay, you have to ask yourself, who is the audience for this? Like I often think to myself when we're making videos that it's sort of like aimed either at someone who's maybe like college educated, or just like or a person who's just a curious human, the sort of person who, whether they went to school or not, you know, is interested in understanding stuff about the world, and probably like goes on deep Google rabbit holes and reads too much Wikipedia and watches too many videos.
How much you know, the language you use, how much these students can digest in one go, how deep you should go into a concept. It's like that Wired series where an expert explains something to people from different educational levels. The physicist is not going to explain the complexities of black holes to a 5-year-old, even if those details are very important to the actual theory. Sometimes educators have to sacrifice some accuracy or depth for better pedagogy. This is what some might call scaffolding. You give the person learning steps to climb to reach point A rather than just giving them point A right away. For example, in my high school philosophy class, I was taught that
They do philosophy in high school in Canada. Damn. I know that some like private high schools in America will do that, but not. My like numbers are guys. I hope my numbers are frozen because it's telling me only 14 people have liked this stream. I hope that more than 14 of you have liked the stream. And if you're just tuning in, by the way, it's Wisecrack Live. Michael Burns is always here with Henry. As always, we're talking about video essays today. Watching this video on video essays as a way to talk about it. We'll have some stuff we'll talk about later. We're going to check out our emails as well. So if you have anything you want to drop, wisecracklive666@gmail.com. But do like the stream, please.
Kant argued time was like tinted sunglasses you could never take off. It's a filter we're born with and we experience the entire world through them. I understood this analogy and got an 100 on my video explanation of Kant's theory of time.
Hey.
2 years later, I show up to my university course on 17th and 18th century philosophy, and I'm being told that what I learned about Kant was wrong. It was an oversimplification, and it purposely used a flawed analogy with the tinted glasses. But just because that analogy was wrong in some way doesn't mean it wasn't helpful pedagogically.
Yeah.
That first step didn't
That's
get
legit.
me to point A, but it did give me the resources to climb to the next step.
And I think about that sometimes because I know there's like, so I said a thing in Friday's video about Marx's epistemological break. And when I said this thing out loud, I thought to myself, some like big philosophy nerd is going to well actually me in the comments. And someone, not going to say their name, but who's an actual philosophy professor I've interacted with before and I'm aware of their work, did the well actually thing. And, I kind of responded, was like, yeah, I get what you're saying. But it's hard because then I'm asking myself, is it better to slightly simplify a thing for the sake of most people getting this and moving forward? Is it better to say the thing with 100% precision, knowing that that might be alienating or just confuse a lot of people? I'm always on the side of the people, so shoot me.
Now
Don't
I
shoot me.
definitely recite the critique of pure reason
Don't wanna
word
get
for
shot.
word. Scaffolding is an important educational tool, but if I don't know where my viewers are starting from in terms of their education and political beliefs, I don't know how to start the scaffolding process. Without
Everyone tell us your education and political beliefs in the chat, and I will know exactly what to make.
other people misunderstanding me. So when viewers complain about
And your
video
address.
essays being either too deep or too shallow, consider this a reminder that just because you clicked on this video and you can pause and exit whenever you like, doesn't mean this video was made specially for you. Algorithms seem to respond solely to your actions. Experientially, it feels like you're the sole spectator of this digital theater or digital classroom. Like all products under capitalism, you are alienated from the production process of a video essay, and so you simply
Damn, we're getting Marxist here. Also, I think someone above me in this house just pooped or peed because I heard a toilet flush. Good for them. I didn't know that the basement would give me access to everyone's bowel movements. Probably intense because last night me and my wife and my mother-in-law and aunt ate barbecue for dinner. And I made a joke about how there were so many toilets in the house that it would be fine. And everyone looked at me kind of like, Michael, are you really out here making jokes about having diarrhea tomorrow? And I was like, you know what, I am. I'm almost a 40-year-old man. We're eating barbecue like a bunch of hogs, I guess cannibalistic hogs. And yeah, it's going to happen. I'm going to have to do some stuff tomorrow. I still haven't started that process, but hopefully I'll make it through the stream. But yeah, I do think this point is really interesting about how viewers are alienated from the process of production of a video essay. And I know when we think about alienation in, don't tell anyone I said this, a sense, we often think about it in terms of like industrial labor and the way in which the labor is alienated from the thing that they are making. But it's important to always remember that alienation works both ways. It's like that. And that we're often alienated from the production of things we consume, whether that's you being alienated from how the gas station sushi you bought was made. Please don't eat gas station sushi. Or in this case, not knowing what it's like to make a video. And I do think sometimes we might watch, and people sometimes even say to us, like they're surprised if I tell them that our videos are really expensive to make. And they're like, how? It's just someone talking. But it's like, yeah, we have to make videos in a place. We have to write them. We have to shoot them. We have to edit them. Shouts to Jackson. We have to make thumbnails. We have to upload them. We have to have someone to monitor them. Like it all takes a lot, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. Like for example, like I couldn't do this stream without all the work that Henry does. Henry also edits our videos. A thing that like we don't do internally. So there's just so many things that go into it, and that doesn't mean that people should be, I guess, like overly sympathetic to bad videos. But making a video essay isn't just someone turning on their camera and like talking. And it's almost like makes me think of John Mulaney. I'll tell you why. When you watch John Mulaney do stand up, the reason he's so good is because you feel like everything he's saying he'd kind of just thought of in that moment, and then he's riffing on to make you happy. But if you went to every John Mulaney stand-up set and special up until when you saw him, you see someone meticulously writing and rewriting, and they're so good at doing it that it seems natural. And I think often with a good video essayist, it's similar in that you might see someone who just seems super cash, like they're just hanging, but they probably did a lot of work to get to that point.
Finished product.
I didn't even mean to hit play.
Find some people treat video essays as if they're having this private tutoring session, and if the creator doesn't go about the topic the way they were expecting or wanting, they want that refund. It's also made people worse at reading between the lines, and video essayists or commentators have to navigate that. If I say women shouldn't always be doing the domestic labor, do I also have to say, and men also shouldn't have to either? If I say anti-blackness is bad, do I also have to say, and so is anti-Asianness, and so is Islamophobia, etc.? It just goes back to that well-known tweet of like, I like pancakes. Oh, so you hate waffles? Now, I can be guilty of forgetting the importance of scaffolding as well. For example, when I watched Barbie, my friends and I did not like it. We thought it was such a shallow picture of feminism and womanhood, and it sometimes felt gender essentialist. But then I go online and people were touched by the movie. I felt nothing during that montage where it's like, when did it end? But during that scene, my sister told me she cried really hard. Now, this video is not about Barbie, so let's just say I
hated that part of that movie too, but then I just had the thought, like, Michael, this isn't for you. This isn't, no one made this part of the movie and thought, we really want to hit the white straight guys in their late 30s with this one. So, sometimes when you watch a movie, sometimes you got to have that sense of just like, it's not for me.
I still don't think it's as powerful as some people do, but I did revise my initial opinion. America Ferrera's famous monologue didn't feel revolutionary to me, but it might have been an important learning curve for others. If learning truly is for everyone, and if video essays truly are to democratize learning, then we have to remember that people start from different places. Here's the other audience-related trouble that comes out of this, though. If I'm truly committed to democratizing learning for everyone, or as many people as possible, then in my more political videos, should I, as a lefty, putting that in scare quotes cause not every country thinks about politics in such a binary way like Americans, should I be trying to reach those with very different political beliefs than me? If social media already creates echo chambers and many right-leaning
It's communist, Marxist, Satanist Kamala Harris speaking to the workers in China. I got to pause there because that's a real thing we think about, right? So, like, for example, let's do some more behind the crack type energy. Like, because, a thing that is said, of course, is that the channel fell apart when I took over from Jared because I am not only dumb and I have no personality, I'm not funny, but I'm a radical leftist, right? And the channel used to be unbiased, it used to be objective. And now it's like a radical leftist thing where it's like, if you think I'm a radical leftist, you haven't been out much. But it's hard because it's like, if you want to make stuff that teaches people things, is it better to have like an unbiased thing? Is it better to wear your biases or your ideological commitments and to continue to use analogies that involve old white comedians? I think of someone like John Oliver, right? Last Week Tonight has gotten better and better the more that it's been clear that John Oliver is a pretty progressive guy and that his staff is pretty progressive. And the more that he has kind of been overt about his political ideals, I think the show is more engaging. I think the show is more, and sometimes like passionate. I like it a lot better for those reasons. I think that, the reason that people are excited to have Jon Stewart back on The Daily Show, shouts to all the boomers, is because Jon Stewart, at his best, has like values. Like, he's the funny late night guy, but he noted after the DNC that it's pretty insane that they wouldn't let a Palestinian speak. He said it, Someone like a Trevor Noah, when he hosted The Daily Show, I had no idea what that guy believed. It was kind of just detached. So, and I think for me at least, I would like to make a thing where if you are not as left-leaning as myself and the ultra-radical Henry are, and the very radical Jackson, and the insanely radical Lux, and the truly horrifyingly leftist Amanda and Olivia, who I think are building a gulag, but I'm not supposed to tell. I want to make stuff where if you're not left-leaning, you don't feel like I'm calling you an idiot. I want you to feel like you could at least see, where I'm coming from. But to me, it would feel more disingenuous for me, disingenuine. If disingenuous, oh boy, I got there. I would feel more disingenuous if I tried to act like I didn't have politics. How do you feel, Henry, when we talk on here and you talk about your politics? Do you ever feel like YouTube's a weird medium for that?
I mean, I think the sense of voice is kind of what gives character to the channel. It also is what creates argument if people disagree, whereas if there was like a weird kind of play for objectivity, it would be, as you said, disingenuous. The education thing gets to me too because, I feel like as I've grown older, I've really started to realize how many young people aren't getting served by like the public education system, and how many younger people are turning to the internet to kind of like self-explore these things. And we talk about political radicalization on other streams, and yeah, it's happening. I think someone should be out there talking and kind of like starting a dialogue or engaging with that.
Yeah. Well, I think you make a great point that, like, as someone who's, I kind of believe in the dialectical method in a very general sense, if I don't if the person whose content you're watching or reading or whatever doesn't at least have some determinate position, there's no way for there to be productive debate. And by productive, I mean, like, I should be able to say, oh, here's an aspect of political theory that I think is good, or here's a thing that Mark said that I think is good. And then you should be able to say, because I say it clearly and determinately, then you can say, Michael, I don't know, though. I actually think that point is bad because of this. And then I can say either, well, no, but I think what I'm saying is that, or I can say, you know what, you raise an interesting point because there's room for that. Go ahead, Henry.
And the whole ploy for like objectivity or like non-biased knowledge leads me to question like, well, what utility are you looking for in that knowledge? Are you just like collecting an idea, or are you looking for like something you could pragmatically apply to your life, or something that answers an actual stress or anxiety going on in the real world? Like, what's the point of just kind of putting it in a glass case and looking at it?
Well, following that, then it's almost the case that when people say they want objectivity, they don't want objectivity. I think what they want is like centrist, neoliberal talking points. You know what I mean? Because what do you mean objective? What do you mean unbiased? Like, or do you just mean that you want positions that don't radically challenge or shift from dominant ideologies and power structures? Do you want a perspective that's like, comfortable to those who don't want to acknowledge that maybe systems or ways of thinking we take for granted might have problems with them? But yeah, that's great. And but obviously Kamala Harris is a Marxist.
Folk are alienated from traditional academia, which is often left-leaning. Is it not my responsibility as a video essayist to try and communicate with them? I think I have tried to reach non-left viewers before with videos like abortion versus infanticide, when is offense justified, finding empathy for anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers, my infamous I had a Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro video phase video. But again, people don't realize that scaffolding is going on.
I mean this as well. Shout out to everyone who watches our channel that doesn't have our ideological beliefs. And if you're someone who does lean a little more libertarian, conservative, anarchist, whatever, I appreciate you hanging out. And I hope in general, as long as you're not a fascist or a racist, like, hey, why not? Why not hang out together and do that? And I know that I watch content regularly by people who don't line up with my precise way of thinking, and that's okay. That's okay.
I love reactionary cinema.
Oh my God. Did someone just make a good reactionary cinema comment?
No, I'm just thinking about the complete and utter joy Lady Ballers delivered.
Oh my God, yes. Chris Maverick in the chat, the people assume they are objective. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what, I was trying to get at that before, Chris, that like, it is that thing where, it's almost like objectivity is my unbiased, my unconscious biases or my unconscious assumptions or whatever, or my unconscious ideological beliefs. That's what unbiased is. That's what, objective is.
Because the barrier of algorithms and social media makes it feel like content is made for you special individual. In trying to democratize leftist academia to more people, I end up getting misunderstood as some secret right-winger. And that makes it scary to keep trying. It feels a lot safer to just continue teaching things to people who are likely to get on board. But then that doesn't feel like I'm making academia more accessible.
I mean, I'll be honest with you guys, this is probably too much, but there's been times in recent years where I have felt like aspects of the hard left or the activist left have gone too far, such that it feels like super alienating to anyone that doesn't agree with them exactly and precisely. And I think that's bad. And there's times where then I find myself like kind of agreeing with some more conservative thinkers, and I'm like, oh no. But even a broken clock, right?
Relatedly, that's one thing I've appreciated about philosophy. Philosophy at its best is a collaborative pursuit of knowledge.
It is.
Emphasis on collaborative. It's not simply about providing the best logical argument or providing the most popular argument. You have to be able to communicate that argument to the person you're in dialogue with and make it compelling to them.
What's gonna work? Teamwork.
For example,
That really freaked me out, and I'm gonna have a nightmare tonight of
Example,
that.
here's what is considered a bad objection. Even though evil things happen in our world, God is a perfect being, so
Yes.
he would ensure that
Yes.
we are still living in the
Yes.
best possible world.
Yes.
God doesn't exist. Ever heard of evolution, bro? In our increasingly secular and scientific society, believing in science and not God wouldn't be controversial. But for Leibniz back in the 17th century, this objection is flying over his head and all the 5 foot of hair on top. Here is a better objection. Events like the Great Plagues that killed off 1/4 of the population of the known world, the earthquake that swallowed up 400,000 people in China in 1699, those that happened in Lima and in Callao, and finally the earthquake in Portugal and in the Kingdom of Fez. The axiom that all is well seems a little odd to those who witness these disasters. All is arranged, all is organized, doubtless by Providence, but it is only too apparent that all, for a long time now, is not arranged for our present welfare.
I mean, interesting, of course. I'd say the best theological argument I've ever heard for stuff like that. I don't believe this is true, but I think the most convincing argument for why a God would let bad stuff happen is that the necessity for human freedom, because if there's no human freedom, you can't freely choose salvation or make free ethical choices. But the downside of that freedom is that like fucked up shit happens. I don't think that is true, but I'm just saying I find that more convincing than like some of the people that would say, well, it's not for us to understand the mind of God.
Yeah, that's Milton's argument with Paradise Lost, the whole free to fall thing. Sufficient to stand, but free to fall.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's fair. I get it. And also too, when she brings up the argument about like God isn't real. Have you ever heard of science, bro? Another thing where I think a lot of people on YouTube and other digital spaces that engage in academic arguments, people will just be like, yeah, God doesn't exist, bro. Or I believe in science, but it's like, but can you articulate what that means? Can we really get down to brass tacks and talk about at an epistemological level why we trust science? Because then you got to be able to do that. Because if you can't do that, it's not that different than like, at least at a structural level of like, I just trust God. Now, I'm not saying science is bad. I'm not doing anti-vaxxer stuff here, just to be clear. I'm simply saying that sometimes liberals, especially, I'm not saying leftists, more liberals, are just like, the signs in front of their house. It's like, in this house, we believe in science. That means science doesn't want your belief, it wants your understanding, okay? You never hear scientists be like, well, I believe this. Right? No, the data concludes this. I don't know anything about science. The last science class I took was like, how many years ago? Too many, I feel old.
Voltaire starts with options in the world that Leibniz would already agree with, and then shows how these observations are in absurd pairing with the belief that we live in the best possible world. So yeah, how do I make my video essays educational and accessible and also get people to understand the intentions behind my choices? How do I convince them that I do not like Ben Shapiro? Please. I'm probably being an overthinker and maybe trying to please more people than possible, but this is a dilemma that I am struggling with. If you have any thoughts on navigating it, or if you think there is no dilemma and I'm being stupid, please let me know in the comments. Now, despite my worries about being able to achieve the educational goals I want through video essay creation, there is good in this genre. There are some particular criticisms I hear about video essays that are understandable and are well-intentioned, but I believe to be mistaken.
I want to hear the criticisms. Let's go. I'm glad that Jackson's leaving so he doesn't have to see this.
You're not original. This is the 5th video essay I've seen on Pretty Privilege.
Now and that's the thing like I've had to talk about, like, pretty privilege is a thing that I have. Everyone works for Wisecrack has it, so also pretty. No, but this is like a real thing, right? Because when there's a lot of videos on the same topic, you have to wonder, is there really enough to be said about those things in different ways? Are we all just trying to grift off something that seems clickable? There was a topic that I was discussing about with my colleague Amanda today, and I even had to say, like, I'll be honest with you, it's landlords. We're thinking about doing a video on landlords, but my thought was like, we really got to make sure we have our own take on this because there's been so much said about landlords. But I'm curious to see what you have to say here.
Folks, the capitalist mindset tells us that we must constantly innovate towards a more efficient future. But when everyone is competing to be the next big thing, everyone cares about shock factor and forgets the value of repetition and deeply exploring the same ideas.
I love repetition.
It reminds me of the replication crisis in science, where researchers face a lot of pressure to produce original, exciting results. The pressure comes from various sources, getting grants and other funding, getting published and cited by other researchers. So sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, researchers will rig the scientific method a bit to get desired results rather than honest.
Well, I think too, this like affects how the effect of video essays mixed with, okay, let's see if I can square the circle. Okay, so video essays don't exist in a vacuum. They exist on a platform. The platform is YouTube. Now, YouTube's goal is to make you as smart as possible by really focusing in on, no, none of that is true. YouTube's goal is to get you to watch their platform for as long as possible, clicking around like a goddamn psychopath. And so we have this contradiction between, let's say, video essays ideally exist to try to create a world where you're able to think carefully and deeply about things, watch videos on similar topics to sort of broaden your depth of knowledge, or go deeper in what you want to do. What YouTube wants you to do is click as many things as possible on all types of different stuff, so you like see a little bit of everything, right? YouTube wants to like pick you up by the legs and put your head on a buffet thing and just do this, right? So it then, I think, has the effect on the audience, like us, and I do this as well, where maybe what we should be doing, if we're really interested in one topic, we're really interested in, again, our video on Friday is about immigration. If I'm really interested in the political and ethical issues around immigration, maybe I should make a playlist of a bunch of videos on that. I should watch all of those videos. I should note down references that are made to any books or papers that sound particularly useful. And maybe I just say, hey, for the next month, I'm going to learn a lot about this one thing. And at the end of that month, I might now be someone who really understands an aspect of modern culture and politics that's really important. But YouTube is probably not going to facilitate that, because it's going to be like, you like this, but you'll also like this, but you'll kind of like this. What about this? And it might lead to a world where a lot of us are like watching stuff and listening to stuff at such an insane clip that we know just enough about things to feel like we know stuff without enough depth of knowledge to really understand things in an interesting way.
Yeah, that's a big question I have as far as like, do video essays work? Like, in what sense do you want them to work? Do you want to take what you take from an essay into like a real world argument or conversation, or is it kind of reference for further exploration? Like, to what point is the audience using the essay?
Yeah. And I mean, like, so I think I finally have the ideas for what I'm going to do. And I finally figured out how to edit good enough to do something basic. But I've been wanting to like test some stuff out on my own channel for a while. And one of the things I'm interested in is what it would look like to do. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments and some stuff in the chat. Because part of me thinks like, here's what I would love to do. If I said, Wisecrack is going to do 4 seasons a year, and every year in each quarter, we're going to, cover a related zone of things. And we're going to make, 48 episodes a year. Every 12 episodes is going to build around a similar thing. So maybe like, maybe there's a world where I could be like, cool, one of our seasons in 2025, we're just going to talk about things related to like existentialism, subjectivity, human identity. Doesn't mean it's all going to be literally philosophy stuff, but every video we make in that 12-week stretch is going to loosely cohere around this big idea. And if you were to, let's say, every week watch those videos, by the end of that 12-week stretch, you would feel like, and you wouldn't just feel like, you would know a lot more about the philosophy and theory behind subjectivity, identity, existentialism, all this sort of stuff. You would have heard some of the same ideas over and over in different ways. But my sense would be that if we were to do that, that it might not work well algorithmically, and that maybe both the audience, even if it's unconsciously, would be like, oh, more of this. Oh, they already talked about that last week. I don't want to watch this again. And then maybe even YouTube itself would not like that. And I do just want to say that someone in the chat said something that I think is worth stopping for. That Donald Trump is Jesus Christ. The world is witnessing the resurgence of a strong and prosperous America. And I just want to say, yes, Donald Trump is literally Jesus Christ. When you look at things about Donald Trump, just think about him. And there's not a quality you could say of Donald Trump that isn't literally applicable to the person of Jesus Christ is written about in the New Testament. So I just wanted to note that down because it's really true. I'm glad that someone had the bravery to say this in the chat, and a lot of you are cowards because you won't say that. But yeah, so I think about the Last Supper or the Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount, especially, it's this is Trump. This is what he's saying.
He got all those hamburgers for the handsome football players.
Loaves and fishes. Okay, Christ stood on the mountain and said, "With these 4 loaves and 3 fishes, whatever the number was, I will feed everyone." And he said, "Burgers for everyone." But I don't know. But that's a thought on how I would maybe like to do it, and I don't know if it would work. That's why I'm thinking of doing something like that on just my personal channel to see if there's a way to make it work. But I don't know. I think that something like that would be a model. The other way you could do it, I guess, would have to be a little more sneaky, which would be so for example, let's say we were and we've kind of done this a little bit on the streams, I felt like this year, but let's say we decided, okay, Q3 of 2025, we really just want to talk about the difference between structures and individuals. So every video we make in this period, we want there to be some element in which we are either looking at something in society that's seen as a individual or personal issue, but we're really going to get at the underlying structural reasons for that. Or on the flip side, we're going to look at something that is a structural problem that we don't think about at the personal level and flip it that way. I think maybe that's the way that you could do it. But just a lot of planning, that'd be kind of hard. And then you're almost subversively teaching your audience a set of ideas over and over. Both seem hard.
Results.
Your research specifically asked if they had ever tampered with their data in some way, big or small. 2% admitted to have fabricated, falsified, or modified data at least once. That's tens and thousands of scientists.
But we need more researchers to replicate experiments that have already been done to ensure that the results are actually reliable. Repetition from various sources is so important. Similarly, in the humanities, I think having people engage with the same topics over and over is not necessarily a bad thing, so long as it's not just them reading off of Wikipedia or plagiarizing other people's work. But people don't have to be doing original analysis to have their voice be valuable. For example, personal anecdotes are structurally excluded from traditional academia as being a way of justifying an argument. If you wanted to write
Not if you took one of my classes, friends. It was just personal anecdote on top of personal anecdote. My teaching evaluations, I think I threw them all away because they were too painful to read. Were a mix. And I'd say more than half would be Michael's fun. He makes things relatable. He's a little bit weird, but it works. And then some would just be this fucking guy just says the weirdest shit and tells random stories about a thing that happened at a bar and then tries to tell me that explains a thing in David Hume. You should take him out back and put him to death. Student evals, man. Worst part of that job.
An academic essay on pretty privilege. That paper is not going to be published if the justification for your argument is anecdotes about your own experiences feeling unattractive and the consequences that came from that. But the internet breaks down that barrier and gives your anecdotes a stage to be taken seriously.
My name is Craig, I'm 43 years old, and I'm gonna tell you why getting older is awesome.
And simply hearing various
Craig.
perspectives on the same topic is valuable, even if the person who's giving that perspective doesn't then do some rigorous analysis of it. Moreover, with complicated topics, there is a lot of good in repetition because, let's be honest, how much information did you retain from that video essay or podcast you listened to once? I'm guilty of this too.
Not a lot. Just not a lot.
I find myself nodding along to the podcast I'm listening to, but then when I try to explain the content to someone else, I can't.
I will say this is why a thing that we don't get on in YouTube. I think I'm going to try to do, because once I get home next week, I'm going to do the next episode of the Byung-Chul Han reading thing over on our Patreon. Not a huge formal plug right now. We have a Patreon. There's extra content over there. There's a Discord server. It exists. But a thing that I do think is helpful in academia, and this is why I was always a really easy grader, or if you're British, marker on essays, is in my mind, the point of an essay is for you, the student, right? The point of the essay is that you are being forced or encouraged to articulate what you know in an externalized fashion. Because often we think we know stuff. And I don't know if you guys have ever had this. This happens to me all the time, where I think I'm really smart about something and someone says, "Oh, can you explain that?" Or, "Michael, do you know about this?" And I go, yeah. So it's will you put the lime in the coconut and you shake it all up, I think, whatever it might be. And I think if you watch a bazillion video essays and you never externalize that knowledge, whether it be via conversation or just writing stuff down, I do think there's like a limit to what we can learn. And again, I don't know if there's a quick fix for that unless you start leaving really lengthy comments that are like, what I took from this video was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because then to get back to like the dialectical or dialogical nature of this stuff, if all I'm doing is consuming educational content, if all I'm doing is ingesting ideas, but I'm not engaging in a conversation about those ideas, if I'm not externalizing those, there's going to be a pretty low ceiling on what I can know. At least that's what I think. Let's see. Zoe listens to the same podcast as their boyfriend. They talk about squirrels doing battles for the courtyard. Yeah, I mean, if you could listen to, we could. Drift King notes were nowhere near Raw Dome. Yeah, we're learning stuff. We recently have been putting pictures of me on thumbnails for our main channel videos, and they've actually been doing well. And today we were kind of late in getting a thumbnail for the stream, and we put me on it, and it's just like, it didn't work. I'm going to change the title and see if that does anything.
Let's see what the machine thinks.
Yeah.
What you do bring to mind, though, is just like the difference between theory and practice. I'm more like a production background, but like you can read a lot about what happens on set. It's not going to prepare you to like actually like do those things on set. Well, it will prepare you to an extent, but like it's not the same experience as like the first time you're on set and you realize you have to like wrangle people and manage several other things besides gear.
Yeah. Just for like data, I'm just going to tell everyone this, Henry. Do you want to switch to the what's the point of video essays thumb?
Sure, I can get that rolling.
And see if that, yeah. Sorry, this is the dumb stuff we do to see if we can like, drive some stuff here.
I do think also talking about like construction and planning and figuring out what goes into like, speaking for a video essay or putting together a video essay or just public speaking in general. You should go to an open mic and just see someone do it horribly. So you kind of understand like what the worst case scenario is and what you have to kind of like grow from.
Yeah, do it. Okay, we'll watch a little bit more of this.
I may remember big general conclusions, but many of the details get forgotten.
And the details matter, right? You could remember like, this thing is bad, this thing is good. And like, maybe you're right, but this is where we get in trouble. If the point of learning is being able to grow as people, affect the world around us, and hopefully have a positive effect on the thinking of others, if I tell a friend, like, this is why work is bad, it's bad for the laborer, and they're like, okay, why? Well, Marx said so. Cool, but like, why? If I can't then explain, like, well, when Marx talks about alienation, he says there's 4 ways that this happens. And like, I don't have to know it with a ton of depth, but that's going to be way more convincing if I can talk someone through the process of alienation. If I can do it in a way that's relatable, they're a lot more likely to be like, okay, like I might not agree, but I see where you're coming from. And if we only hold on to the conclusions, we miss that sort of stuff.
And detail is important. We can't just be saying conclusions and opinions without knowing the reasoning behind those things. Also, I find that listening to different people explain the exact same thing is super helpful, because different ways of saying things will resonate with different people. Sometimes hearing the same thing more than once will also let it sink in better. I remember trying to understand Derrida's concept of différance, and
it's like one of the hardest ideas in the world. Literally one of the hardest ideas in the world.
It was like
For me,
only
at least.
until the fourth time my prof explained it that it actually sunk in. There's no argument here. This second criticism sort of falls under the first one about originality, but I've seen people criticize video essays for not having a take. An essay.
That's the thing we get critiqued for sometimes. Like, I think two things we get criticized for. I wonder how valid you guys think these are. One thing we get criticized for is this, not having a determinate enough take, not standing on business. Another thing we get criticized for is not offering solutions or alternatives to problems. Anecdotally, our colleague producer oliSUNvia, I'm just going to speak on her personal life on stream without asking for permission because I'm crazy like that. But hypothetically, she was at a social gathering and someone at the social gathering was like, "Oh, you work at Wisecrack." Yeah, great. And this person was like, "I used to watch that channel, but then it got too depressing." And I think there's a sense sometimes that our videos can be too depressing because we're not explaining alternatives to those things. So curious what you guys think about that. Also, reminder, we're going to get the emails at the end of the stream today. So wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Do check that out and do like the stream if you haven't already.
Is argumentative. Or just giving explanations, but you don't really offer your own opinion. Or if your opinion is, "I don't know, please share what you think," you're not really doing a video essay. In Shanspeare's video on video essays that I mentioned earlier, they addressed how video essays are different from the traditional essay. Traditional essays are about having that argumentative punch, that decisive conclusion.
Oh, I saw someone say that they're late. First of all, you're never late. If you're here, you're on time. This is Olivia Sun's video essay about video essays, came out last week. And it's linked in the description as well. So as is her channel. So if you're not already subscribed, if you don't check out her stuff, please do check the link in the description.
But video essays not necessarily so.
Eric S. Faden argues that the traditional essay seeks to be exhaustive. It is argumentative, structured by its thesis, supplemented by its evidence, and rounded out by its conclusion. But not the video essay. The video essay
suggests possibilities. It is not the end of scholarly inquiry. It is the beginning.
You get questions like, how does an editor think and feel? Or, Gossip Girl 2021, what the hell happened? And you get answers, surely. But I would argue that because the answers of an essay are inherently subjective, they aren't the most important part. It's the process. If we wanted a quick answer on a silver platter, San's journey, we just type it into our search engine. This labyrinth, this mental knot, these are the foundations of what we've come to know as the modern video essay.
Still, I totally see where this criticism is coming from, and I agree. When it's just a drama channel rehashing what happened with no take, or a film channel that just summarizes what happened in the movie, that's not a video essay. But this criticism is often said in a way that implies that if you don't have a take, you're not just miscategorizing your video as a video essay.
I mean, yeah, I do agree with that point that she showed the other creators say that, like, a take is less necessary than going on some sort of journey and understanding things. So I guess in a way, I wonder at the end of a video essay, would I rather you be like, cool, now I know Michael's take, or now I know Wisecrack's take? Or would I rather you be like, oh shit, now I kind of understand how immigration policy on the right and left is like shockingly similar, and that's maybe bad. That's Friday's video, by the way. Be on the lookout. I kind of think the latter is maybe more useful.
When it really should be called commentary or a rant. The implication is that if you don't have a take, your video is not valuable. But I really disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree with what
For one, being able
Maverick's
to provide
saying
clear and accurate explanations of other people's work is important and not always easy to do. Knowing what to include versus leave out, knowing how to draw out main points and thematic patterns, paraphrasing things in simpler or more entertaining language. If this stuff was easy, then all of y'all should have gotten high 90s in high school English class. I also want us to be more thoughtful about what is considered a take, because there never is a neutral, objective way of retelling something. When you explain or...
But then you like, here, I'm going to talk shit for a second. No one will ever see this. But you know, there is that YouTube channel called The Take. I wrote a few videos for them at one point. And I think that a channel like that, and some of their videos are good. There's some people that write for them that are good. From what I saw of their editorial process, though, their vibe is there's less sort of like ideological cohesion or purposefulness to it. It's more just like, what is a take on something? What is a video essay on something in media where we can say, here's the take, here's a sort of argument about it. And it seems like and what I'm basically saying is like the structural idea of having a take is more important than the content of what that take is within reason. And, YouTube facilitates that and likes that. But I think that's another issue in the video essay sphere. If you're too driven towards having the takiness of it all, the takiness can get in the way of curiosity, thoughtfulness, careful argumentation, and stuff like that. But we're going to have some hot takes later in the show.
Retell an event. There are arguments implicit within the choices you make in that retelling. You can't just say, I'm just telling it how it is. For instance, let's say I told the history of the American Revolution like this.
The moment you've been waiting for! Here comes the George Washington! We are outgunned! Outmanned!
Then I told the American Revolution with the inclusion of Black soldiers' contributions and struggles. Choosing to include or omit these details means deciding whether those details were relevant or important. And as
I could live 10,000 years and I'll never get why people like Hamilton. I completely respect the people like Hamilton. If you love Hamilton, that's cool. I don't think you're bad. I don't think you're dumb. I don't think you're corny. But I'm just being honest, me as a person, and it's fine. It's not for me. I could live 10,000 years and I'll never understand why people like it so much. And I will say, some might say to me, like, well, Michael, it's not for you. It's about representation and blah, blah, blah. Fair, but to that, I'll say everyone I know who's obsessed with Hamilton is just like a very upper middle class liberal white person.
such, seemingly neutral explanation ends up arguing for different ways to judge history. When someone asks you, who is Elvis Presley? You could either list his major musical achievements, or retell his life through his relationship with his ex-wife.
Watch out!
And those lend themselves to two very different opinions.
I'm still mad at myself for not seeing that movie. I know it's on streaming now, but I'm a big Sofia Coppola head. I can't believe I missed that.
Forming about the same question. Retellings are not an objective feat. So when the contributions of marginalized communities have been historically left out of retellings of history to include and center women, queer folk, ethnic minorities, and so on in your account of history is an argument. It's arguing that these communities should not have been neglected and have made significant contributions.
Makes me think of a Matt Walsh tweet we might bring up later about how conquistadors were the best guys ever. Matt Walsh is a crazy person. I still kind of want to do the thing, guys. This is like a half joke. I think it'd be really funny to get a bunch of people and go to, I would obviously do this in Los Angeles, go to the first showing of his Am I Racist movie. I can't believe they're showing that shit in theaters, and I kind of want to just go and see who these freaks are that are, sorry, I shouldn't speak like that, but these people are who are paying money to see that. But what if a bunch of us just got tickets and we sat down, and the second the movie started, we all just started going, and you could take breaks to get a sip of water, but we would maybe time it to where there was always at least 10 of us making fart noises, and just see how long it would take them to kick us out of the theater. What's the worst? We get kicked out of a theater? Fine.
Are they Sound of Freedoming it where they're pre-buying tickets to just hand out to people to stuff it, or are they expecting people to actually pay for it?
I think people are paying for it. I'm not totally sure, but I'm gonna look into the AMC's in LA and see how many tickets are actually sold. Also, guys, another random thing. I just learned about God's Not Dead 5. I saw a commercial for it on a TV channel out here. Comes out in a couple weeks. I got to do it, guys. It's Pastor Dave from God's Not Dead. He's running for Congress or something. I think it's the movie America needs right now, and I think America needs me to make a video about the movie. So look out for that. Also, if you've never watched the God's Not Dead movies, don't watch them, but watch our videos on them because they're insane.
Even if explicitly say those words. Moreover, there are certain standards of argumentation in the American world that are not universal. I can only speak to philosophy, so let me know if there's something similar in other disciplines. But very loosely, there's this distinction between analytic philosophy and continental philosophy. To understand their difference, you could read this book, or you could look at memes.
Definitely memes.
So today, the way most people are trained to write philosophy papers in America falls under the analytic tradition. Basic structure I was taught was explain philosopher's argument, object to philosopher's argument, respond to your objection.
So I didn't get trained in analytic philosophy. I sounded drunk there. I've not drank today. Although on this trip I've done some day drinking, not during work days. But I was trained in the continental tradition, which is way more vibes based.
The focus is on you coming up with these objections and responses and focusing on logic. We are encouraged to use I statements in our writing. I argue that. My claim is this. But in the continental tradition, which is more prominent in Europe, there's a more historical way of doing philosophy. You might be taught to focus on putting other philosophers in dialogue with each other and drawing out patterns rather than putting yourself in the spotlight. That's all to say, I sometimes think the expectation of intellectuals to sell their own ideas and put themselves in the forefront is an American ideal. But it's definitely not the only way of thinking about history and philosophy. Why do I always forget what it was?
Part 4. This is the last part of the video. Thanks for hanging out. I'm finding this interesting. If you are, I appreciate that. If you're not finding it interesting and you're here, I really appreciate that because you're just hanging. And if you don't find this interesting and that's why you're not here, then there's no one for me to talk to.
Concepts. The last benefit I can think of that can come from a less argument-based video essay is providing concepts that help us make sense
I think
of our
this is important. I agree with
experiences
this
so that we
so
can
much.
have knowledge. For instance, if a friend spreads a false rumor about me, I have the concept of betrayal to understand what I'm feeling and to communicate that feeling to other people. Only when I have that concept of betrayal can I then assess whether it was right.
I mean, I'll say it. If there's a concept that it's been said that maybe we overuse, or definitely that I overuse because it's in videos I write, it's alienation, right? Specifically Marx's concept of alienation. The reason I use that over and over is because I really think that most people have a sense that, to be very crass here, like shit sucks. Like most people go to work or school or whatever, and they're kind of just like, why does everything feel bad? Why do I feel bad? If I'm working like I'm supposed to, if I'm going to school like I'm supposed to, if I'm doing all these things the way I'm supposed to, why do I still feel bad? I think a concept like alienation is really helpful because it's Marx's way of explaining how you get from some sort of essential humanity to feeling dehumanized by processes of labor and production. And I think sometimes for many of us, whether it's staring at a computer all day or working at a job we don't like, or if we're younger and we're in school and like it sucks and we're not enjoying it, or if we're in debt because we took on a mortgage that we probably shouldn't have, but we thought we were supposed to, I think that being able to name that sense of like existential malaise is really important. I saw someone bring up Mark Fisher earlier. I think Mark Fisher is like one of the more, notable, and obviously RIP, but recent thinkers who like articulates the moods of late capitalism. I think someone like David Graeber, another RIP, in his writing about like bullshit jobs, right, helps us articulate why work feels a certain way. And I think in a sense, when you give someone, it's sort of like give a man a fish and I'll eat the fish. But then if you teach him how to fish, he'll catch more fish when he's fishing. I think concepts are like that. If you give someone a take, they'll eat for a day. But if you give someone a concept, they'll eat forever, because then the concept is a tool that you have that you're able to analytically apply to things happening around you in the world. And even if you can't fix it, right? Even if you can't dismantle the capitalist labor structure, I would hope at least that you could have a moment of being like, okay, I can understand this via alienation or whatever. And at least I know, A, I'm not crazy for feeling this way. And B, it's not like my fault that I feel this way. I always think about the line from the movie Office Space, one of my favorite movies, where someone asked the character named Michael Bolton why he doesn't just change his name. And he says, why should I have to change when he's the one who sucks ass? And I think there's something similar here. Like by understanding systems via concepts, we're at least able to understand, like, why should I change when the system I exist in is the one that sucks ass?
Right or wrong, and make arguments about the situation. When someone is prevented from being able to understand a significant area of their social experience, this creates what's called a hermeneutical gap. Though for the sake of more accessibility, cause good pedagogy, I'm going to say conceptual gap instead. For instance, someone who suffers from a rare medical condition that does not yet have a name will be unable to receive a diagnosis and optimal treatment due to the lack of an appropriate concept. These conceptual gaps are often harmful and sometimes wrongful, and that's when it becomes an injustice. Before the concept of sexual harassment existed, Carmita would, a woman who had a male professor, quote, jiggle his crotch when he stood near her desk, or deliberately brush against her breasts while reaching for some paper, she became very distressed, and her distress was amplified by the fact that she was unable to understand that experience and explain it to others. It was only through listening to many other women repeatedly share stories of similar unwanted sexual advances that Carmita realized this was a distinctive social experience of being a woman.
Well, think about it this way. What are some of the concepts that certain people who I don't like, who you probably don't like, that we talk about sometime, concepts they hate? They hate racism, they hate diversity, they hate sexual harassment, all these things, right? Well, what are those things? They're ways that people who are often being oppressed, marginalized, or mistreated, it gives them the tools to properly articulate what is happening to them in a way that can maybe even create communities of solidarity and change those conditions. So like, why don't I want people to understand colonialism? Why don't I want people to understand the concept or use the concept of systemic racism or misogyny or all these sorts of things, right? Well, because if they don't understand them, they can't articulate them. If they can't articulate them, they can't share in that experience. They can't share in that experience. They can't sort of form solidarity and do something to change those systems. Just an idea, just the thing I'm saying. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something.
And came up with the
I think it's
concept
something,
of
though.
sexual harassment. Having this concept allowed them to understand what happened and to also take legal action and have their harm properly recognized by others. Conceptual resources are super important to spread, and video essays can absolutely do a great job of that. Help you make sense of your social experiences and communicate them to others. Okay, if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with me through this disorganized ramble. Can you help me through my ponderings? Do you have anything to add on my responses to the criticisms of video essays? Leave a comment below.
Asking for comments is fine and good.
Thank you so much for watching. Let's keep talking, and I hope to hear from you soon. Okay, bye.
It's been a while since we watched a full video. I'm really proud of us. I'm proud of us for doing that. We used to do it a lot more. We haven't done it in a while. I found that useful. And yes, Alec has also naming and framing. But yeah, I think that, so I'm just catching up on some of the, oh yeah, Society of the Spectacle. That's a friggin' great one. That's a friggin' great one. I don't know. I think that, I'll tell you what I liked about that video or what I think, and I'm curious if you guys have thoughts on this stuff as well. One of my takes from that, I love a take. I love a hot take. You know, I think that the video essays are really important form. I think it's a very useful way of learning. To be even sort of materialist about it, we could say that we know that a space that people go to at increasingly high numbers, especially young people, is YouTube. Like more people watch YouTube, especially younger folks, than, Netflix and other stuff. So like, if we know that's where people are, then why not take advantage of that space to create things that at least aim to explore concepts and ideas that are important? And I do think there's at least two ways to make a good video essay. And I think maybe the best way is a mix of the two. But I think they're almost the affective and the conceptual. This is all the stuff I'm saying right now, but I'll keep it going. I think an effective, and by effective I mean AFFECTIVE, an affective video essay is one where someone probably starts from personal experience, involves maybe their emotive or affective reaction to things that have happened in their life or things that are happening around them, and then exploring the meaning of that feeling or seeing if that feeling can be a starting point to understanding the world better. So maybe an effective video essay is one where I'm like, guys, I'm feeling really bad about work, and I'm going to try to explore that idea. A conceptual one is probably a little bit more ideas focused, and not like, hey, today I'm going to teach you about this concept, and this concept might help you understand stuff. I think for me, sometimes I think that, maybe the gold standard is when you can do both, get really heavy into a concept, but that the person making the video should be able to speak to that with a level of, effective care, with some emotional connection to the thing. But I think that those are valuable ways to do the thing. And I think in terms of like problems we identified, or that she identifies in the video, I think something we then need to think of is like, for people that make videos, for people that consume videos, how can people that make videos do a better job of not being so like ADHD with it, of really focusing on specific, conceptual buckets such that an audience has a depth of understanding and not just a shallow little, I know a little bit about everything. And what can we do as consumers of YouTube content? I am a consumer of YouTube content, to encourage those things. So I want to say those are my takeaways watching that and thinking about it.
Yeah, I really liked the differentiation, noting the differences between like an academic essay versus a video essay, and just like the differences in like raising a point versus raising a question. Also, the conceptual gap stuff at the end makes me better realize why I really like Jackson's fentanyl video. That's probably my favorite piece of YouTube content, and I think it's because it takes a very serious topic and relates it through, television, media, how people are seeing things. And it's a very clear message as far as like you're being lied to about this thing, and there's actual research and data to back it up, and it raises the question of like, why is this narrative at play? I think Jackson's fentanyl video is just very playful and excellent.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I've even noticed on our videos, if I go back and look at, which videos performed particularly well over a certain period of time, like this year, for example, the stuff that has performed well, a video I did that was on kind of reacting to some stuff about Mr. Beast and how he was treating workers, that got into how YouTube is messed up in general, where I did get pretty personal because this stuff affects me. That did really, really well. One of the ones on Jordan Peterson and religion, or Jordan Peterson and Marx, did well. And I think in all of those videos, it gets into ideas, but I know it's stuff I really care about. Like if you watch Friday's video and if you watch these streams, I get really mad when bad men say stupid things that trick people into believing dumb stuff. I hate those men. But I'll be honest, sometimes if I look at our videos that haven't performed as well, sometimes I'll be like, and it's different because I don't write all of them. I help conceptualize most of them. But, it's times where like even, and something Olivia and I have talked about, like there's times where we film a video and it's just sort of like, okay, like I say stuff and it's like, I'm saying this stuff and this is like right. It's not wrong. But even Olivia will note, it just feels kind of like mid. Like we're just saying some stuff and there's not necessarily like a personal thing there. But yeah, but then again, you can't win them all. We put out something like 50 videos a year almost. Sometimes we just put out way more than that. There's only so much you can do. I think that's the thing too. I think that some of my favorite video essayists put out a video like once every 3 months. And I think that's why they're so good. Because they take their time with the thing. But it's hard because like YouTube rewards in some cases a neurotic amount of content production. So I don't know, should we just say fuck it and look at this University of Austin thing real quick? It's long. Never mind.
It's a bit long. We might want to look at emails and kind of circle back around to view of A in a week or so.
Yeah, let's do that. Let me click one thing real quick.
And once again, this is Wisecrack Live. If you want to email us, I threw the data up on the screen, wisecracklive666@gmail.com.
wisecracklive666@gmail.com. The most recent email we have is from Ghost Energy, which I don't believe is a real thing. But I'll check it out later. So let me go. God, let me think. I've gotten a lot that have come in. Okay, so we looked at the Brew Darrymore one, right? A couple weeks ago.
I believe
think we did.
So. What's the question?
Well, never mind.
Real-time post-production here.
Yeah. Okay. We've gotten a lot of stuff. I'm gonna kind of scroll through real quick. And okay, so this one's relevant. So I'm gonna look at where is this? So this is from someone. They said their name is CO, and they said, "Hey, longtime fan and patron, fellow Raw Domer, shouts to you." Person says, "Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the amount of Jordan Peterson content is just too damn high. He's just I'm going to read this literally because it's fun. He's just sucking the dick of conservatives with his bad faith talking points wrapped in the thin layer of philosophy jargon. You talking about it and deconstructing it every time he opens his oxygen wasting face hole is, in my opinion, a bad use of your time. He clearly doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Taking him seriously is like deconstructing a toddler throwing a tantrum for not getting ice cream. I don't see the value in it. Also, I hate the man's voice so much. I didn't realize a punchable voice was a thing until I heard him. I love your takes on philosophy and your rants and all the weird places your brain goes on these streams. Your brain power. Well, that's very nice of you to say. But it says my brain power is better spent on other stuff than a douchebag monkey using the language of philosophy to tongue some money out of the assholes of conservatives. Going for it. And it's relevant because we had a video that just came out on this. I mean, I think I'm of two minds, right? Or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to say your email address on here. Because, I agree with you in a sense that it would be awesome if we never had to talk about Jordan Peterson again, right? But then there's two reasons we end up doing it, or maybe three. One is that it makes me so mad, and sometimes I do want to talk about stuff that makes me mad. Two is that there are people in the world that buy this shit. And it's not just an abstract thing for me. I had a person, and this is one anecdotal example. I had a guy come up to me at a bar in LA once to be like, hey, you made these videos on Jordan Peterson. That was really helpful because I had a friend who was kind of like getting Peterson pilled, and we watched those and talked about it, and he's kind of not in that world anymore. I think that is valuable. The third thing is that the shit, it often gets clicks. People watch it. So sometimes I'm like, okay, if I can make a video reacting to Jordan Peterson, it'll give me an excuse. And this happened in the Marxism and postmodern videos we did with him, where I can get really deep into Derrida or Foucault or Marx or whatever, and I know people are going to click it. It's like a win-win. But at the same time, I understand what you're saying. You know what I mean? So I don't have a cool answer to that other than I do agree with you, but I can't really see it, I don't really see it changing anytime soon. Oh, what are your thoughts on this as someone who gets dragged into talking about this stuff?
I think it's suitable reaction content for a live stream. I'm kind of glad we don't do a lot of actual curated video essays on it. I think we've done maybe 2 in the time I've been editing here for Wisecrack. I do know people who have fallen into Jordan Peterson's self-help side, and it begins the slow slide towards considering his politics. So I do kind of agree with you in the sense that maybe we can catch some people before they fall too far from that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we do. I'm trying to think so this year on the main channel, we have the video on Peterson and Christianity, which came out in January, February. And then we had last week's video on Peterson and Lindsay. It was mostly a Lindsay video, actually.
Yeah, see, the only other one I can think of is the Zizek debate.
Yeah, and that one, God, one of the Peterson video, I think in 2023, to be honest, we either didn't do a Peterson video in 2023 or we just did one. But yeah, all that to say is I think doing more than a couple a year would probably be too much. But I guess if you think of it this way, if we do, let's say around 50 videos a year, and 2 of them are on Peterson, what does that mean? 1 in 25? I'm bad at math. Let me do this. So that means 4% of our videos in a year would be on him. I don't know. But I get it. And I think, yeah, I get it. And that's why sometimes I do try to keep that stuff more stream focused so that y'all can just dip out if you don't want it. But here's an email from, I'm going to say your first name, hopefully that's okay, from Seth, that says that Monday's live stream is from a couple weeks ago about the DNC and America's most lethal fighting force got me thinking about what would be the right thing for me to do if there were a draft today. This is a fun speculative question, friends. I'm a healthy, able-bodied man in my 20s, so I'd feel some sort of duty to make myself useful, not to mention the benefits that come with serving, GI Bill, travel, etc. And it's clear how people feel about draft doctors. That said, war is bad, and I don't know if I'd want to have a hand in that, even as a pencil pusher. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. It says, also, there's a chance I'm being naive about this. Decisiveness is not one of my strengths. I'm sure you've seen the tweet. People say stuff so definitively, like, man, I think it depends. Yeah, I feel that. Let me know what you think. I mean, I think many of us have probably thought about this before, just in terms of like the speculative possibility there could be something like a draft. Wasn't it and I don't know what the deal is. Wasn't it a thing where you could be a conscientious objector? Or am I making that up?
I believe there were categories of conscientious objection, and also like if you were disabled in some way. The U.S. still has like the selective service. If you're registered for a vote, you're theoretically on a draft list. They just don't
I got
actually
that card
enforce
in
or
the
enact
mail.
it.
Yeah, I mean,
This is something I go back and forth on too, because like I've heard arguments, for instance, that like, oh, if the draft were a serious thing, people would be more civic minded and pay closer attention to politics because they wouldn't want to go to war. I do wonder, if you don't have an educated population, though, how easy it would be to just get people to fall for pro-war narratives.
yeah. I mean, I just think with like the draft thing, right? I think if you're not gonna go, it's like if you're gonna be about it, be about it. And this is like a long way around and maybe trying to answer that question. What's annoying about Trump isn't that he dodged the draft. It's that he dodged the draft, but then will be like, the military is sick and we should fund the military and we should do war stuff. Because it's like, if you're going to be like, I shouldn't have to go to war, you shouldn't be putting anyone else's kids to war. And I think the most effed up thing is when politicians will get out of military service, but then be comfortable sending others' kids there. Like, I think my dad used to say, who's not particularly like woke or progressive guy, was sort of like, if you were a senator or something like that, you should only be able to vote for war if you were going to send your war age son or something like that. Because I think that annoyed my dad was this idea that all the people making the decisions to send Americans to war are often wealthy dudes whose rich kids are in private schools and, Wall Street jobs, and they're just gleefully sending the children of others to war. But I also think like, son. Yeah. But I guess the thing is like, if you don't want to kill a person, I think it's okay to not do that.
Yeah.
I think it's like okay to not kill a person. Because that you can't undo that one. So I would just say, I don't know. So that's what I think there. If anyone else has thoughts in the chat, hopefully it doesn't happen, but it is, it's complicated. I think it's, there's some countries like Sweden where you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Swedes, where you have to do military service, but it just means for like a year you wear an outfit and go jogging with a bunch of hot blondes. And I mean that in a gender inclusive way. And then you've like done your service. Or, like I know they do the military service in South Korea that the boy bands try to get out of. But I don't think South Korea is doing a lot of war these days. I don't know. So here's a question from one of our regulars, aka, known as Lennon McDonald's. So they've been on a job search for close to a year now. Wondering if you have any advice to keep the motivation and morale up. Feels like I'm wandering into the desert with a water bottle and sunscreen is running out. Job searches suck. You know what I mean? Like, they suck. I don't know what to say to keep morale up. Only that every time I've gotten a job, it's been kind of random. I think that jobs I've got, that's not totally true, but a lot of times in life, when I've ended up with a work opportunity, it's because I was in the right place at the right time, because I was like talking to someone who knew someone, because someone thought of me for a thing. So I know that like the next time I'm without a job, because let's be honest, guys, this is all going to collapse at some point. Not the basement I'm in, but this whole thing, right? Is along with applying for jobs, I would hope that I made sure that I was doing everything I could to at least like put myself in position to be aware of opportunities, and whether that's just letting people in my life know that I'm looking for something, whether it's, and some of this is going to sound pretty corny, shooting emails to people that do stuff that looks cool and being like, hey, can I buy you a coffee and talk about how you started doing that thing? And then I think also when it comes to job search stuff, not being too precious, because at a certain point, like you need a job. So maybe at a certain point, it's like figure out what is the thing that you're qualified for, where you can work with people you maybe want to be around and things aren't terrible. I know that in the past, myself and friends that I have, work like service jobs. A lot of my best friends still work in the service industry. And, sometimes it's a way to like make a solid amount of money, not absolutely hate what you're doing and have some level of flexibility. And I think sometimes maybe people get too hung up on having to find the like career job and losing track of the fact that at the end of the day, what's most important is just like making enough money to live and not feeling miserable. I know it's kind of abstract and not super helpful. You have any thoughts on this one, Henry?
Yeah, what you bring up about just like reaching out and letting your network of friends and connections know that you're actively searching is what I would suggest as well. Aside from that, though, I mean, I've had too much cynicism this last year about like the reality of the job market. So I don't think I don't want to say much more because I don't want to bring anyone down.
Yeah. But it's like tough, I don't think there's an easy way. There's just not an easy answer to that. And I guess maybe one thing that worth saying is that like you are not alone. This happens to a lot of us. We've all
Yeah.
been through that. And at least know that like you're not the only person that's been in a situation. And while it sounds kind of corny, like something will pop up at some point. It might not be the dream thing, but something will pop up. I won't get like fully into this long email, but Andrew recommended we check out the band Viagra Boys. They're a post-punk
Oh, I
band that
love
makes
the
sick
Viagra
music.
Boys.
And their last album, Cave World, skewers the right-wing radicalization pipeline in a similarly absurd way to a lot of Connor O'Malley's stuff. So that's interesting.
Yeah, they have a track
I've
called
not listened to them.
Troglodyte that's real good.
Oh my God. I'm going to check that out. Let's see. This is an email, and I think this has to do with like the Disney video we did recently. And this person says, in the late 90s, I worked for a company in New York City that specialized in theming. Says, I called it a concentration camp for consumers. During one of the office meetings, it was announced that the company received an award for delaying the public in a movie theater lobby by a few minutes, increasing the overall sales by a few dollars per person. I couldn't make this up. They remember their favorite urban planning professor, Graham Shane, commented on that design type and said there's no way to critique it. It is literally skin deep. Man. So a reminder that people in the world are planning things in such a way that we, are constantly consuming. Here's an email from Maximilian. It says, I have a question regarding your Who's Afraid of Marx video, which I guess is one of the Peterson ones. It says, while your channel claims to be educational, I noticed that you neglected to mention any of the atrocities committed by 20th century states or organizers run by avowed Marxist, including but not limited to the USSR, Shining Path, the FRC, Khmer Rouge, Mao's China, and the party signatory to the Warsaw Pact. As a man descended from individuals who fled Eastern Europe in the late 50s and 60s, I'm appalled at how you neglected to mention the failures of Marxists that might create a justified fear of the ideology. But in other videos, you're willing to criticize any measure of liberalism, capitalism, or any other part of society today. They did not sign their name to that. So I'll just say this, and this is maybe I'm sure this is kind of a follow-up as well from Friday's video. It is in the same way that I can critique capitalism without saying everyone who's died because of capitalism, that their blood is on the hands of like Adam Smith. Like, I wouldn't say that. It seems dumb to me, right? Adam Smith was an economic theorist, as was like Ricardo and some of the other, economists of capitalism. They had theories of economy. Those theories were then taken, used, expanded, manipulated by governments that existed years after their deaths. And the people that are responsible for, let's say, the horrors of capitalism are the capitalists. right? Are people that help run and perpetuate the finance industry or that run the militaries in states that are perpetuating a neoliberal capitalist ideology. I do not think so. For example, you can be incredibly critical of the way in which Soviet bloc states used a really weird and violent reinterpretation, and I would say misinterpretation of elements of Marx's writing, and bad things happen. That's totally fair. But to say that there's any real one-for-one correlation between the economic and philosophic and political writings of Karl Marx and atrocities that happened in the 20th century, I personally think, and maybe this is reckless, is silly. I think that's a silly conflation to make. The guy that invented the slip and slide, it's not his fault if you broke your ankle on the slip and slide. It's not his fault if someone had an idea to like do something stupid on a slip and slide. It's not the best analogy, but if I made a video that was like, here's why Stalin and Mao rip, then you could hit me up and be like, this is fucked that you're saying that Stalin and Mao rip and they did X, Y, and Z. You cannot point me to a textual example in which, for example, Karl Marx is like, here's why you should like put people in camps and kill them. Here's why you should round up people of this religion or whatever it might be, this is like not a thing. So thanks for the email, Maximilian. And I hope you're okay. Last email we'll look at, just got this. You got this by the skin of your teeth, Callie. Asked, advice on time management. I have lots of passions, hobbies, and interests, and want to know how you choose to spend time on things. Also, what you define a hobby as. My partner says watching YouTube videos is not a hobby. And is your passion considered your hobby? Thanks, lots of love. Quick thoughts here. Time management. At a certain point in life, you got to think about what's important. I know that I'm very busy, busier than I've ever been, largely because I had the human child, which meant that when I had a kid, I really had to do some thinking and realize that a lot of the stuff I'm into, I had to make like priority for certain stuff. For me, one of my hobbies is playing music, and I realized playing music brings me, you could almost do like a joy and regret scale. Playing music brings me a lot of joy, and I have almost no regret. There's never a time where I'm like, oh, it's bad that I like played music. But let's say if my hobby was watching YouTube, which it kind of is, I get a lot of enjoyment out of consuming content, but I also have a lot of regret sometimes because I'll look back and be like, did I need to watch those 3 hours of videos on some obscure topic? Was that really worth it? So I think you got to make some honest assessments about stuff. And in terms of time management, like, being more efficient and getting your work done, and you're like,
Michael, you there?
Yes. Can you not hear me?
I got
Am I
disconnected for a moment. I think we're back now.
Okay. Oh my God, I almost died. I'll say this then. I gotta go anyways. But yeah, with time management, did someone bring up Dan Vagina and how he says you can have 3 days? I would do that. But if you don't have 3 days, Dan Vagina is a different guy. I also use a little hour timer sometimes to time tasks, which I find kind of useful. But I'm not very good at it. Do you have any time management stuff, Henry? And in the chat, let us know if you have time
The time yourself thing is very good advice. I also really like your joy regret considerations. As someone who edits and also just like really loves movies, I'm always noting like run times. But like knowing how long a job's going to take to edit, or like how long it's going to take me to read X number of pages in a book, really does help you kind of pre-plan. Like, okay, I can spend 2 hours doing this and get this far, or like, okay, I can pick up this big thick novel and it will take me X amount of days. And that may sound kind of like overthinking it, but like it really does allow you to like optimize your schedule and free up your fun time.
Yeah. Drop stuff in the chat if you have stuff. If you're good at time management, hit us up at Wisecrack Live 666 and we'll check out the email. Well, hey guys, that was it. We made the basement stream work. I really appreciate you hanging out. As always, if you're a coffee drinker, check out Yes Please, 20% off. Really, really fucking good coffee with the code Wisecrack. Would love to hear your thoughts. So either hit us up at wisecracklive666 at Gmail, or just jump in the comments. Because like we said earlier, I'm a psycho who actually reads the comments, believe it or not. And let me think of anything else. I don't know. Thanks to you all. Thanks to all our patrons. Thanks to all the super chatters. Thanks to all the subscription gifters. And we should be around on Monday to catch up with you again. So in the meantime, hang loose, take it easy, teach a man to fish, and watch Friday's video on immigration because it gets into how the left and right policies, or at least the liberal and conservative policies towards immigration, are actually pretty similar, and they're both leading us towards fascism. Have a good week.
Yeah, very considerate today, chat. Thank you for the happy Wednesday, and we'll see you Monday.